We're doing an experiment with the pendulum lab. So if we were in class, we would take some weights and we'd tie them to a string and we would do this lab. But today we're just going to do a simulator. So when you load the simulator, it's going to look like this. We're going to click over here on lab and you'll have to double click to open the lab and it will look like this. Okay? Now, a pendulum is just a weight hanging on a string. And so some of the things we can do is we can change the length of the string. So up here in the top right corner, you can make the string short and you can make it long. Okay, so you can change the length of the string. If you need to make the length of the string 0.75, you can't quite get it to 0.75 by moving the slider, but you can use the arrows to change it in small amounts to get exactly the length you need. So there it's at 0.75, or maybe we need it to be 1. You can change the mass right here, so let's make it 0.5. If you needed to adjust that, you can change it with the arrows as well. So there is the mass of 0.5. And gravity tells how hard the gravity of the planet you're on pulls down on it. And so we just want to make sure this is Earth. So right below the gravity slider here, there's a drop-down box. And it says Moon, Earth, Jupiter. Make sure you're on Earth there. And then what you can do is you can grab your pendulum and you can pull it back. And up at the top there, I don't know if you can see, it says 20 degrees. Okay, so right up here, it tells you the angle that it's pulled back. Okay, so we want to pull this pendulum back about 20 degrees. So there, 20 degrees. And then if I let it go, it'll swing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And you may have seen one of these in your grandfather's clock. Um, it's a timekeeping device. And so the period of the pendulum is the time it takes to make one complete swing. So the period is the time it takes to go. So let's see, right when it passes, it's very hard to show. Right when it passes the middle, moving to the right, it moves to the left and then back to the middle. The time it takes to make a complete cycle is called the period. And so down here in the bottom left corner, there's a period timer, which helps you measure the period. If you hit the play button, it will actually show you from there to there, back to there. The time it took to swing there, back to there, and there is the period, and that's 2.02 seconds. Okay, so I'll click it again, and it timed the period. All right, and so what we are going to do in this lab is we are going to ask, how does this period, the time it takes to swing back and forth, how does that depend on things like the length and the mass and the angle we pull it back to when we start it and gravity. Okay, now down here there's friction. We are not going to worry about friction. Make sure it's on none. So in air, it doesn't really lose much energy. If you were to put a pendulum underwater, it would go like this. It would slow down and pretty quickly stop swinging because there's a lot of friction when you're underwater. But we're going to make sure it's over here on none, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to get some instructions about what to make the length, what to make the mass, what gravity to use, and how far to pull it back. So let's do the first one together. So the very first problem on your assignment is going to be to make the length 1 meter. So here we go. The length is 1 meter. We need to make the mass 0.5 kilograms. So there's 0.5 kilograms. We need to make sure we are on Earth. So take the drop-down box and choose Earth. If you bump these here, it'll say custom. We just want to make sure we're on Earth. And make sure there's no friction. And then you can stop the pendulum. It tells you to pull it back to 20 degrees. So right up here in this corner, it's going to tell you what angle you've pulled it back. So this is like a protractor here. So if I grab the pendulum, it's called a bob, and I pull it back over here, you can see the angle up there is changing, and there's 20 degrees right there. And then I can let it go, and it'll start swinging. And anytime while it's swinging, you can click the timer, and it will time one complete cycle, one period. So on the first problem, it says the pendulum is 1 meter long, the mass is 0.5 kilograms, you are on Earth, and you pulled it back to 20 degrees. What is the period? So there's your answer right there, okay, 2.02. Now, it's going to ask you to change some things and repeat this. So every time you make a change, hit stop. Change what you're supposed to change, make the length different or the mass different, whatever it tells you, and then pull it back to whatever angle you're supposed to, and each problem tells you what angle to use. Let it go, and once it's swinging, you can click the timer again, and it will time the period for you and tell you how long it took to swing. All right? So we're going to do some investigations with this. So the online assignment is going to tell you what length to use, what mass to use, what gravity to use, how far to pull it back, and then you will enter the period of the pendulum here. And you can round this to 2 decimal places. So you could actually write this as 2.02. You don't need to write out all those decimals if you don't want. Okay? All right, good luck.